Good evening, guys. Welcome to another podcast of EverestIMS. Today, it's my real pleasure. I have Praveen Srivatsa with me. Know him for past 17 years, probably 15, 17 years, long time. We first got introduced to each other as he came as a guide and angel to us to help us out in some critical problems. And our relationship has been ever since. To introduce Praveen, he's a serial entrepreneur working with, especially in the product side, with startups, as well as doing social entrepreneurship. We will touch upon that topic also today. Of course, he started his main journey was as a Microsoft MVP, and also has been guiding us through a long journey. Right now, he is a part of our technology group, which is actually helping us scale our products, getting into the newer systems, a lot of activities that is going on in and around it, right? Welcome, Praveen. Real pleasure having you. Thank you so much. So today we'll go upon our usual favorite topic, AI, right?
So one of the things I'd like to quickly interject is that, like you said, I've known EverestIMS for a long time. In fact, I'm not sure if many people know, I presented a paper on what EverestIMS did at one of the Microsoft conferences in the US.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
So I presented a paper on how to handle a 100 terabyte system on SQL Server in the US. And that was a case study of an EverestIMS implementation. Right.
Yes.
So, that has been the journey. It's been a fantastic journey, great journey. So one of the amazing things is that dealing with large data, it's nice to talk on paper, but you don't always get the option to come back and actually work with real world applications like that. Right. That's been a fantastic space.
Yeah, I remember the project, but it was something well executed and it was well appreciated also.
Right.
Okay. So today we'll touch upon AI and things around it, I think. Currently, the biggest buzzword, I think, is Gen AI, and then you have LLM, all different lot of buzzwords going on. What's your take in it in terms of actually are people using it? What are they doing with it? What's your take in it?
So I think Gen AI is fantastic, right? ChatGPT, Bart, a whole bunch of other Gen AIs. Not many people are aware that there are over 60, 70 different models for Gen AI already available. Right, and Gen AI has sort of taken the world by storm. Computers came in, internet came in. Microsoft sort of missed the boat on the internet in the initial stages, but then caught on. Mobile phones came in, and I think this is sort of the next revolution that's there. But like all revolutions, I think what will happen is we'll start it off as a toy. We'll start it off in terms of a lot of buzz. We'll go through a bunch of pain in terms of misusing it. And finally, I think we'll come to a point wherein we'll actually understand it. Right. So that's the whole interesting thing about the whole Gen AI piece. It's a piece, I think, as human beings, we'll take time to understand it. Right. Most computers works on logic. It's bits and bytes. Right. So, if you write an algorithm to do a certain function, it'll always do the same function every single time. With Gen AI, you ask a question 100 times, it'll give you 100 different answers. Right? You don't even know what to trust. You don't know how to test it. You don't know what to believe in it. Right? It's like, a small kid gone haywire kind of a stuff. It pretty much does what it wants. Right? How to work in a system like that is something that we have to figure out, right, as we go around it. Right? One of the things I tell to 10 people about Gen AI is Gen AI is sort of the average collective intelligence of a large group of human beings. Right? What it means is that, if I have a question today, there's a high chance a bunch of people around me know the answer, but I don't know who knows the answer. Gen AI collects all this information, puts it together. So when I ask, it gives me the collective intelligence. But what it also does is the people who are not so well versed, it brings them up. But the people who are experts, it actually dumps them down. Right? So in a sense, it sort of averages out the collective intelligence, and it's up to us to decide, what part of that is good and what part of that is bad. Most of the pushbacks that we see as part of Gen AI are people who are experts push back saying that it is going to dumb me down. Right? While people who are not completely comfortable in a space, it suddenly gives you a lot more option and learning around. Right? So that's the whole space in terms of how Gen AI works and why it is fascinating in terms of what we want to do with it, kind of.
That's true. So I think kids are using it now, right? And I was also asked a question somewhere that, well, kids are using this. What are adults doing with it? It's a fascinating question for which I said kids are using it to play, adults are using it to do business, right? So, and of course, once we verticalize it, it makes a much bigger difference in terms of where it happens, right? Nice. So, second question, just moving from Gen AI to, what's your take on the current AI that is because we have been listening about AI for quite some time now, right? What's your take in terms of what is happening in the AI space? Is it good, bad? What's your take on it?
So I think, like you rightly said, Gen AI is a layer on top of the overall AI part of it, right? AI essentially is the whole space which looks at data patterns as compared to logic. Right? So rather than logic driving something, we are basically saying, I don't know what is the logic, but you give me a bunch of 100 experiments or 100 samples. Based on that, I'll tell you what happens. In a sense, AI is not new, right? When we came back and said, historically, we have figured out, astrology. We have figured out, how stars work. We actually didn't know any logic, right? We looked at a pattern that the sun rises and sets. We looked at a pattern of how the moon moves. We looked at a pattern of the stars, and we figured out something needs to happen. Right? So many of things that human beings learn, and is in fact one of the things that you mentioned is kids get onto it very easily, because kids don't always learn by logic. They learn by a set of habits and practices. Patterns, right? So they see a pattern, they emulate the pattern. They see somebody else do something, they emulate it, right? So which is why, to them AI comes very intuitively. Now, which is the great part, but we also have to understand that the whole AI, because it's built on data, you have to be very conscious of what is the input data to it, right? If you have a bunch of kids, behaving in a certain way, and that becomes your data pattern, you're going to keep reinforcing the same behavior. True. Right? So while it's a great thing to work on patterns kind of a stuff, the challenge with AI is it's extremely important to understand the context of the data. Right? Without understanding the context, we tend to completely misuse it, right? And that becomes the challenge.
Can you give me some examples where it's getting misused?
So I'll give you an example. I think most of the times we ask the wrong question. So I'll give you an example. If you come back and say, can I use AI to do my hiring? Right? No, you have this feeling, so many people are there, I want to hire the best. But trust me, most people who have an intuitive feeling will come back and say, I know the best guy to hire. I will not trust a system to do that. It goes back to my point wherein it averages out the intelligence, saying that, the best people actually will not be comfortable with it. But instead of asking the question of saying, can I hire the right person with AI? If I come back and say, can I shortlist the best persons with AI? Right? You've changed the question. You're eliminating
based
the
on
noise.
my criteria.
Exactly. Now, I don't have the time to talk to 10,000 people to figure out that one person I really like to work with. Right? Maybe as part of the shortlist, one good person might get left out. But it still saves me a lot of time, and the chances of within the shortlisted one, me getting a good one is higher. Right? So many a time we need to ask AI the right question. It cannot solve world's problems, right? But what it can do is it can change the starting point, right? So the way you approach things, there's a lot of noise around the world today, right? So the way you can use AI is as a tool to come back and make it much more data-driven, right? And that's the sort of right usage for it. We have multiple examples wherein people have implemented AI, but just because of the use case or the wrong implementation, it sort of doesn't click at all.
I remember the time when we were first talking about AI in our products, right? And there was a question, somebody asked me that, okay, you have AI, no, I don't have to do any work, it will do everything for me, right? So that was a very thing, and that actually blew my mind, saying that, is that a wrong perception of AI? It's more of an enabler rather than taking over, I think, and that's the perception I think people have it consistently wrong, right?
In fact, that's a good example. There's this great example of an AI implementation. So, this is something that Microsoft did a long time ago. It implemented an AI tool to come back and, make the whole writing much better. So you could write, a 3-page document, click a button, it will rewrite it for you. People hated it, right? The feedback was, less than 10% of the people liked it. Now, after some exercises, they changed it around and they implemented a new tool wherein, you click a button, it will now look through the document and give you suggestions and give you the option of which to pick and which not to pick, depending on the context, right? People loved it. And the best part, the backend AI engine was exactly the same. They didn't actually change it much at all, right? So a lot of things, I think, AI is a tool, right? It's like saying, can a hammer do a great job, right? Or can a crane do a great job? So the point is, it's a fantastic tool, but I think a lot of it works in terms of how we work with the tool. Right, like
operator is the most important.
Operator is the most important. So while instead of 100 people doing the work, the crane can come back and do a lot more work. You still need those operators who use it in the correct fashion. Right, you can use it to make a great road. You can use it to demolish a building. It's completely up to you. Right?
For the steel falling on a road runner.
Right. So just like one of the other tools, it's a great tool. It's completely up to us in terms of how we come back and use it in the right way. In fact, one of the things I'd like to touch upon there is it's very important in AI to build trust. More than accuracy, predictability is very, very important. For example, you drive a car and the car tends to shift a bit to the left. You'll adjust and work with it. But if it sometimes shifts and sometimes doesn't, it's a mess. Right? So with AI, when we start working with it, more than accuracy, predictability becomes very, very important. Right? And that's when you start trusting the AI, and that's when you can do a lot more work with it.
Interesting. So I think something important for us is the journey into the AI ops space, right? Because that is changing the way we are actually managing customers, or customers managing themselves and their IT systems. What has been your take on AI ops especially, and how is it changing the user's perspective of it?
In one instance, I think it's extremely important. We are so dependent on technology. When I say technology today, technology is not one piece of technology; it's a whole stack. Right? We walk into the office, we have a bunch of digital things that are running around. We have IoT devices, we have security cameras. They depend on routers, which connects to the internet, which depends on services. So the number of digital touch points that we have, number of fingerprints that we touch across for any small service is very, very large. And a few small services stop, the entire airline industry will pretty much come to a halt. Right? A few small services stop, the hotel industry will come to a stop. And I can't even start imagining what will happen in a hospital. Right? In one of the hospitals that we were working with, a patient onboarding when they came in had a bit of an issue. Patients started piling up. Doctors are cribbing. They don't know what to do. Everything is digital records, right? So today our dependency on digital information is very, very high. This also means that it's humanly impossible to come back and monitor what is happening, right? So rather than running into a crisis, we need a complete AI-based monitoring tool which comes back and looks at it. Again, I'll come back and use the same analogy. We want to ensure that the AI ops takes care of the 100 dumbed down scenarios, but the few real crisis points, we actually are smarter to take care of it. Right? But it eliminates the noise. One small thing went haywire. I forgot to, restart a router. I forgot to maintain a small point. I didn't notice a small pain in one of the digital connections. All of these basic health can be taken care of as part of a AI ops kind of a platform.
The anomalies can be much easily detected.
Completely. In fact, I would go one step further in terms of, again, saying that, we need to do all the noise reduction anomaly part of it. We have to understand what is critical and what is non-critical, trivial, simple solutions kind of stuff. And the simple solutions, we have to take AI ops forward wherein it can self-correct. Right? Take the example of saying that, a small router is offline. I have the option of switching it to an alternate router. Now, I don't need a human being to do this, right? This is something that, my AIOps can detect, oh, there's a problem with the router, switch it to an alternate line, get the network going. When it comes back, I'll decide what to do with it and then send a report saying, I did this. Tell me, did I do right? Should I continue doing it or do you want me to change? Right? So many a time, sometimes people ask me saying that, how do we deal with a crisis? What happens if, suddenly I have, 40,000 people walking into my hospital? At that point, our problem is not the IT part. We've got 40,000 patients. There's a different problem there, right? So rather than solving the one-off kind of a problems, I think AI ops has to take care wherein we don't notice common problems. That leaves us enough time to look at those one-off kind of.
So, simple terms, we look at critical things, all the things which can force it to become critical, AI Ops actually takes care of it.
Exactly. I think that's a very well put statement, right? AI Ops should ensure we don't get into crisis,
Yes.
Right? And if we do, then we have our expertise and we have enough time on our hands to actually address those.
Yeah, so I think, again, same, the data becomes important, domain expert becomes important. Without that, I think AI Ops also will probably not make much of a sense.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Something that intrigued me about you was your journey in social entrepreneurship, right? It's something that has impacted me personally also, right? You think AI or probably Gen AI is going to impact the way social entrepreneurship is actually going to?
Oh, I think so. So one quick short story here. During COVID, we had gone to this place which is north of Bangalore, remote place, middle of the jungle kind of stuff. There's a huge hill, one small temple below that, right? When you go there, I thought COVID time, it's badly impacted, they probably have nothing to do kind of stuff. I go there and see that priest there says, we have internet connection, we have WhatsApp, people do Google Pay, and we are doing puja here for people from Delhi, from abroad and stuff. So technology has the ability to change the way we live when we make it very simple. And I think AI is also in that place, right? I think AI can have a huge impact in terms of education. It can have a huge impact in terms of healthcare. It'll have a huge impact in terms of a lot of social things that we are doing, right? Today, what happens, and this is all the more prevalent in India because we have a large population, we create a lot of noise, right? Whether it's garbage collection, whether it is managing a large classroom, managing lots of patients, whatever it is, we end up with a lot of noise. Take a simple example of prioritizing patients, right? If a doctor has to see 100 patients, he has no way of knowing whom to prioritize. But if an AI engine can tell these are the 6 people who need critical care, rest you can take your time to look at it. It changes the way we work, right? So I do think AI has ability to change the landscape. Using mobile and UPI, India is sort of leapfrog the rest of the world, right? And my belief is that we will use AI again to leapfrog the way we live as part of a large rural population.
So I think rural as well as the people who are wanting to get educated, it's become a big thing, right? It's
correct. So you can have a kid sitting in a remote, sort of far off places who can pretty much compete with somebody who is in a tier 1 college in America, right? That's the kind of ability that we are creating, right?
And Gen AI is giving that platform also.
Gen AI is giving that kind of a platform for that.
So I think impact on social entrepreneurship is going to be big. Right?
Huge, right? That's my belief.
I think good. Great, Praveen. Thank you so much for being here. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. I think we'll have to do a few more series. So I think we'll have fun doing it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks.